Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour. I am definitely over-caffeinated and unprepared today, so get ready for that. We got a lot going on. Harris is going to do an interview today, which means, as usual, we'll be a tiny bit ahead of the news / behind the news. but we can talk about expectations and what that looks like. Doug Emhoff is a sex symbol now, so that's a thing we're going to update you about. We got some astronaut news finally, because I think we're going to fit it in today, and some reviews from a restaurant influencer about the D.C. food scene, which is, as you know, Vic has many thoughts on. Okay, but before we get to all of that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Catherine. Doing just fine. I had one final anecdote, and I saved it in my various notes about the trip. It's this, and people will find this, I think, very interesting. On the flight back, it's a long flight, and this is the flight from Naples is a long flight, but this is Munich to Dulles. It's about 9 hours, and it's daylight. So at some point, they make you turn down the shades because they want to pretend. That doesn't help me at all.
Right.
My question to you is, there's lots of stuff to do, and now pretty much if you pay them, you can get on Wi-Fi and be normal. Do you watch movies or shows?
I love to watch movies on planes.
Okay, you do that. Do you have any concern do you have concern that people are going to watch what you are watching?
Look, if it gets a little racy, I think you can be uncomfortable. Usually they'll have a little warning that there's some of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, this is what I'm getting at. So,
I'm
uh,
not surprised that's what you're getting at.
I have a list of movies that I think to myself, one day I should stop lying to the American public and actually see the movie that I've pretended to see.
Yes.
And it's not that I say that I've seen it. I just nod along, say, "Oh yeah, that was crazy."
You
I
just
think, oh,
you just let people believe. So
yeah,
it's sort of a medium Tim Walz move.
It is a Tim Walsh-ish kind of a move. I didn't specifically say I have never seen this movie. I just nodded along and say, "Yeah, it was crazy." So I thought to myself, I'm surfing through the selections, and then I think, you know what? Here's a movie from the '80s that honestly I've never seen, and I've nodded along saying, "Yeah, great movie," but I've never seen it. And get ready for this.
Okay.
It's Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse.
Oh, come on.
No, I've never seen it. I know.
You are the
Of
demo
all
for
people, and
that
people
movie.
tell me about I had no idea. I felt like saying to this movie, "Where have you been all my life?" Right? So, 2 things. One is I said, "Let's play." It's an action movie, and I think the reason why I didn't watch it at the time was after Dirty Dancing. I'm like, and before it goes, but I'm like, I've kinda had enough of Patrick Swayze, right? I regret that now. I miss him very much.
I mean, it's not a thing I've ever said.
No, I'm sure you haven't. But I said, at the time, I'm like, okay, I'm sort of Patrick Swayze'd out. I'll skip Roadhouse. And it's an action thing, but really, I just wasn't convinced. He was convincing. But here's the thing. So I said, okay, I'm going to watch this movie. And it's dark, right, on the plane. It's when all the lights are out on the plane. And I'm in an aisle seat. And I have one of these screens in the front. In front of me is the wall. So we're in the front of the economy thing. So,
Right.
but so I have to roll out this thing. The screen doesn't really move. It's very stiff. And it says before I play it, and this is United Airlines. And it says this film has been modified. And I was expecting them to say it's been modified for content. No, it's modified for letterbox. And it said to please be mindful of other passengers because of the content. And it contains X, Y, and Z. Well, I said, well, this is going to be good. But, it's the 80s. I don't know. It's the 80s. So let's see how it goes. Wow. It had a lot. It had a
Uh-huh.
lot of N. That's the letter they use. And SC.
Yes.
I think V is violence, A is like adult situations, and N, a
Mhm.
lot of gratuitous N.
Yes.
And suddenly, first of all, I'm loving this movie. Like, this is great. This is really a quadrant crusher. If people remember from the olden days when I was at the Sun
Yes.
Beacon. All right, first of all, plot very easy to understand. Very easy. Oh, you wants to clean things up. Wait a minute. The liquor distributor is a villain. Shocking. Okay, so that's the first thing.
Mhm.
B, duration. I think it was about 2 hours. It was kind of longer than you'd think, but it was all good.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I'm
then,
not
and then
upset about that 2
yeah,
hours.
yeah, no. C is the action violence. Plenty, plenty. And boy, does Patrick Swayze move. And this is how you can tell, he started off life as a ballet, right? He was in the
Mhm.
ballet. And you watch him, this choreographed fight scenes, just watching the footwork. He's so impressive and graceful in beating guys up, okay? And then D, of course, is the N again, and
Yeah,
there's plenty of it. So,
plenty. Yeah.
I mean, it's all of a sudden it's out there. And not only that, but some of the scenes were kind of extended. So now I have to lean on the side. My son supposedly was sleeping, I
Right,
kept on
right.
checking him. He's supposedly sleeping. I'm now moving my body into the aisle to prevent people from seeing what I'm seeing, but I don't wanna stop the movie because it's such a good movie, and so that's my confession, and I hope that, Governor Walz in the interview does a similar confession to saying, "You know what, I exaggerated," but that's my confession. I had not seen it. I'd say Kelly Lynch, Where Have You Been All My Life, is another one. She
Mhm.
plays the doctor, the hot doctor
Super hot doctor, yeah.
in I think it's like Jasper, Missouri. Super hot doctor, fantastic. And also the villain is the great Ben Gazzara. I really love that actor, and he's in a lot of things. And he's in The Big Lebowski. The funny thing is, he plays a guy whose name is like Wesley. There's no way the that guy, the Mediterranean looking Ben Gazzara, who is a liquor distributor,
You don't
is
think
the
his name
name.
is Wes?
No, I don't think it's Wesley at all. That aside, a fantastic movie. So you saw this movie a long time ago or regularly?
Yeah, but it must not have been contemporaneously that I saw it because it was an R. And
Yes,
my
it's an R. I didn't
my
realize
my
that.
my parents were very easy on R for violence, but
Yes.
not R for
Wow.
nudity.
Yes,
So
and that is R for that, and you'd love it.
no,
You'd
I
love it.
I saw it much later, like, I
Okay.
probably watched it in high school or something.
It's quite
But
something.
yes, Swayze's great, and I have always you notice and
He's very lean.
people write about it frequently that actors with dancing training are
Yes.
better at fight scenes, and I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
one of my favorites is Jennifer Garner, who's fantastic
Oh, yeah.
in action
That's right.
scenes.
That's right. The
She
late
was great.
Alexander Godunov in Die Hard, Christopher Walken. He was ballet as well, and then ballet, which is the interesting thing. But yeah, just tricks. I would say that. By the way, the bar that takes the Double Deuce where it takes place has got to be. And I've been to Missouri, so granted,
It's not
but
in Branson, I don't think.
no, but it is the whitest bar I've ever seen. Like
Yeah, it's downgraded for diversity, I
right,
think.
right. By the way, and I had a conversation with a good friend of ours, and I was talking about Kelly Lynch, and when I tell you later who the person is off air, you will not be surprised. But he said to me, I kind of prefer the villain's wife. Okay, Mary Catherine. Enough about that.
Oh my
How are
goodness.
you holding up Sans dad, Sans husband?
I'm doing all right. I am still totally solo this week. I did have one friend's teenage daughter come over and do a couple hours of mother's helper so
Oh,
I could get
mother's helpers are great.
just a little bit of work done.
Yeah.
But right now we are skating during nap time, trying to make the best of it. It's good. I think I had forgotten how because look, I take care of my children every single day for periods of time, but I don't do the full day every day. So much respect to those who do
Oh,
because it is very tiring. And I don't know if I gave you my stats for the other day. I I hit 54 lifts of
lives.
the
You
toddlers,
counted.
54 lifts. They are 30 and 33 pounds. So that's a 30 plus pound lift
That's
every
great lifting,
time.
man.
And I did 10 flights of stairs holding at least one of the children. So that's a full day workout. But in addition to the full day workout, I have also been training my children for the 9/11 Heroes Run.
Oh, right.
So 911heroesrun.com, you can sign up to run wherever you have one near you. We have one in Northern Virginia. I have not been working on my cardio lately, so I need to re-up a little bit. We need to do some remedial cardio for mom.
I have a question for you, Mary Catherine.
Yes.
Is the 9/11 run on 9/11 or is it on a weekend?
No, it is on 9/22. It's just
Got it.
no, all of them happen
Mm,
vaguely within the month of September.
okay, okay.
So 9/22 for us. And so I have about a month to train my kids. And they have different goals. The older one wants to just have a better time than she had last year.
Sure, yeah.
I don't
Better
actually no, I don't
personal.
mean time. I mean just like
Oh,
enjoyable time.
oh, okay, I thought you meant like the PR, as they
No, the
say.
older one is not looking for a PR. She just wants to enjoy herself.
Good.
And she has as all people do when they start running, she has trouble with pacing and so it makes her very tired and uncomfortable and then she can't get
Yeah.
back to where she needs to be. So we're working on that. The little one, the middle one, actually, the second child, she does want to improve her time and she wants to do a 10K again in October. So
10K.
yes, she did one last year. So
That's great.
so working with her to improve her time, but I took all 4 children out in 90-degree heat
Oh,
on not yesterday afternoon, but the day before. And I had told myself we were going to go train. And I'm the kind of person that, like, if I tell myself on day one and then I don't do it on day one,
right.
we're going to be off the rails forever. So at least on day one, you got to get it right. So I
Yeah.
just said, okay, look, it's 90 degrees, girls. It's going to be not fun, but we're going to do 20, 25 minutes of work. So we did some like little interval runs out at a park around a lake. We did some up and down a big staircase 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
They did a great job, but real shout out to the 2.5-year-old who did the staircase and some hill sprints.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she was wearing an outfit she picked out, which was a dress, a fleece vest,
Oh, come on.
and a pair of sandals. And that little warrior was just out of here, out of here.
You know, they say, have you heard this thing about the test where they had like full grown athletes trying to mimic the moves of a little kid, like a 2.5-year-old, and how the athletes are just exhausted
Oh,
because
it's full body,
yeah,
constant.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so
It's amazing.
she's a real trooper, and she wore that little fleece vest, and I said, "You sure you don't wanna take the vest off? Because it's 90 degrees, sweetie." And she's like, "No!" This is toddlers, and
Yeah.
so it's like she's a high school wrestler.
I was gonna say, I was just about, maybe she needs to drop a weight class. That's why she had it. Sometimes they do the garbage bag,
Maybe
but
she heard me
fleece.
complaining about
Yeah,
lifting her, and
yeah.
she's like, "Well, I'm gonna get down a little bit.
Gotta get lean. Yeah.
Gotta get lean." Anyway, so we did that. I
That's
tortured them
good
just
for
a
you.
just a little bit, not a lot, and they got a treat afterwards. That's the thing about training and running races, like,
Mhm.
all the treats in the world when you're done,
Yeah.
right?
No, well
So
deserved.
we're hanging in there, depending on the moodiness of the 2.5-year-old from day to day, that she
Yeah.
sort of dictates how things go, but we're having a lovely time. And although dad is missed, and he'll be back this weekend. So
Good.
anyway,
Good.
um I can't say that I'm as on top of the news as I normally am while I'm doing this.
Well, you technically shouldn't be because, traditionally, the week before Labor Day is certainly in the city the deadest week,
That's
and
true.
yet
And yet, we did get news, of course, shortly after we taped
yeah,
our last podcast, that Harris will be
yeah,
deigning to sit down with a member
yes,
of the media.
that's right.
It will be Dana Bash of CNN. It's an evening interview. Again, this is going to happen before this comes out, but let's just talk about the
I
setup for this.
Yes, we'll talk about the setup, and I'd also like to know, not to put you on the spot, but what your expectation is, and then, when listeners will hear it, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah," you know?
So I think, particularly in the Biden Trump debate earlier this
Mhm.
summer, I was counting on Dana Bash to ask some tough questions, and I think she and Tapper both
Yeah,
did. Now, it's not that hard to trip up Joe Biden
yeah,
in that state. I'm interested in this because, look, I think unfortunately, because of the way the press is working right now and all that it's signaling, I think there's a real cost perhaps to being the person who asks the question, who makes Kamala Harris lose her footing,
right.
right? And that the cool kids table will not be welcoming if you end up doing that. However, you got to do your job. And I think she's interested in doing that.
Right, that's the question is what is the job? Because as we've discussed many times on this show, there are a lot of journalists who believe that is not the job
Yeah, right.
because
The job,
democracy is at stake.
right. The job, right. Exactly. The job is sort of to cover because you
Yeah,
don't want to be the one who allows
yeah,
Trump to win by having accidentally revealed vulnerabilities about this person who's
right.
running for office without a normal vetting process through a primary. I have some hope for this, that she'll ask some really tough questions. The setup for
Mhm,
the interview gives Kamala Harris great advantages,
sure.
which are, look, she's doing it with Tim Walz. So the polite thing to do as a reporter, right, is to bounce questions between the two of them.
Yes,
It's a little bit more chit chatty. It's a little bit more about the
right.
dynamic between the two people running together than it is about any individual and their policy positions. But honestly, if I were Dana Bash, I might be like, "Hi, Governor Walz, thanks so much for coming. I'm going to deal with the person running for president first, and then we'll get to you."
Yeah. Is she supposed to be asking questions, we'll know this by now, of both candidates? It's not because the joke right now is that Waltz is, as we joke at the Free Beacon, the male chaperone,
Yeah.
but and that the focus is gonna be primarily on Kamala.
I think it should be, but here's why they sent him in there
Mhm.
with her.
And also, is it unfair to say that? But
I don't think it's unfair to say that. If she look, people do interviews with their running mates. That's a thing that
sure,
happens. This is
that's
not
right. No,
unprecedented.
no, no.
However, those people have usually done solo interviews
Yeah.
or taken questions in other environments. So if you're doing one interview and it is with your running mate and your tag team in this thing, it does give the reporter fewer opportunities to
Mhm,
ask things and to follow up. This is
mhm.
also taped, which is,
Yes.
again, it should be live. It's crazy to me that it's not.
Yeah, and
Uh,
why? Why is that, you know? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of things about the setup make it easier for her. That doesn't mean she might not do fine, right? I think our friend Matt Conetti has a good analogy for Tim
Mhm.
Walz, which is he's the Ed McMahon of this
Yeah,
situation. Like,
yeah.
yes,
Yes.
yes, Kamala.
Exactly.
Just sitting on the end of the couch cheering her on. Look, I'm glad she's sitting down for one interview. I think strategically, of course, if you can get away with avoiding tough questions, you kind of should, but it's
Yeah.
not the morally correct thing to do. And I just can't believe this is like she's like tugging the Overton window back to who knows what
Yeah.
when you say, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to enter the race in a sort of unprecedented fashion without a primary."
Yeah, without a
And
single
then
vote.
and then I'm gonna do a bunch of footsie with everybody on the plane doing off the record stuff
Mhm.
for a month before I agree to one interview that I'm gonna tease over an entire month. And then when I give the interview, everybody's gonna be fine with that?
Right.
One interview?
The one interview, like the Barbara Walters get, like, this is the one interview this famous person is doing, and
Yes.
that's it.
Yes. That should not be the standard
Right.
for someone running for president. And I would just note that remember when Palin, who we've talked about her
Mhm.
successful speech at the convention, it was, a handful of interviews after that
Yep.
with network reporters
Mhm.
that sort of tanked her.
Yep.
Now, obviously, the Kamala Harris team doesn't look on that as a precedent for what they want to do, but I would like to point out that Sarah Palin, a vice presidential candidate, was doing a at least a handful
Right.
of network interviews shortly after her naming and her convention speech.
Right. So it is funny because, when we're all saying, "Oh, she's doing this one interview and she's gonna be with Tim Walz and it's like a chaperone. What is happening there? That's kind of weird, or it's gonna be a lot of softballs." And the left was like, "Ha, we got you now because here's evidence of, your Republican running mates together doing joint interviews. So don't act like it's never happened before." That's not the question.
No,
The
that's not
question is this one and done for her? Is this the one interview she is allowing us, granting us before the coronation?
yeah,
Is that it? And, when you think about these kind of interviews, the worst possible scenario, if you're on the right, is that it's conducted like an Access Hollywood interview, where you have the actors doing the publicity tour for the
right.
movie, and they're all sitting around, and then the interviewer is starstruck,
Yeah.
and then there's just a bunch of softballs.
You mean
Uh,
Kelly O'Donnell style?
yes, how are you feeling?
How are you
Do you
feeling?
do you remember the rumor was because the rumor before they settled on Dana Bash was Gayle King, right?
Oh,
Gayle
yeah.
King, and they thought, "Oh, she's in the mix. She's one of the finalists to be," as if they're gonna get to, they're going to deign to decide, who is going to have that great honor of interviewing, the next president of the United States. And of course, Gayle King had donated like $10,000 to her attorney general's race. And, just praising her and gushing about her on TV now, talking about how people shouldn't vote for her, just because she's a black woman, but because she's so uniquely qualified. And they were going to get her, but I think that was too much Vaseline on the lens. as they
Maybe
say,
so.
That
But by
would
the
yeah.
way, I should note Trump once donated to Kamala when she was
That
Attorney
is
General.
that's worth noting. That is worth noting,
Just
okay.
just so that everybody
Wow. Yeah,
has
and well, I did he
on
on
that.
also Hillary, right? Also Hillary back in the
Yeah,
day. I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
was a really weird thing,
Yeah.
but that would have been yeah, so but imagine if Trump had decided to only do one interview, and it's with JD, and it's gonna be on Jesse Watters prime time, you
Right.
know?
No, actually, I don't know if I mentioned this here, but I rewatched JD Vance's first interview, which was
Ah,
right out of the blocks with Hannity, right?
okay.
Now, Hannity's a person that every single other reporter in this city would say, scoff at. "Ugh,
Right.
why would you do an interview there? It's just nothing but
Yeah,
softball." It wasn't. He got at least two or three critical questions,
yeah,
and that is
as he
more
should.
critical questions in that one sit down with Hannity than Kamala Harris has gotten for the entirety of the
Right.
last more than a
Yet,
month. I
with
mean, that
something like
is
70 or 68 or 67 days left.
now our friend Hugh Hewitt says we're missing the ball by complaining about the media.
Oh,
And I told him, well, because he's right. Look, there's only so much you can talk about in a day. And I think, it is incumbent on people who are not supporting Kamala Harris to point out the ways in which she falls short because the press will not do it.
right.
So for the most part. So I do think
The accountability.
he has a point when you just become the media kvetchers.
Yeah.
But man, it is disappointing
Right,
in many respects to watch people just say like, "No, it's good that she's not answering questions." And thank you to Dana Bash for not saying it's good that she's not.
I hope she rolls the clips, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. And again, I'd like to remind our listeners, not that they need reminding, that Donna Brazile in 2016, as a CNN contributor, gave Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
questions before the CNN debate. So it happens. I am going to assume that she did just fine and nothing comes of it. I could be
Well
wrong because I thought about this
well,
with
if
the
there's anything
Biden-Trump debate, and that
yeah,
was,
right. If there's anything
history making.
blockbuster, maybe we can add a clip in
Yeah.
some brief context. By the way, are they still futzing around with the debate rules?
No, from what I understand, it's September 10, and I think Trump had been told to just agree to whatever they want to do the debate, and because they think that they're bluffing and they actually don't wanna do it at all. I
Mm,
think it's, it might be an open mic situation, but that's going to require enormous restraint and self-control on behalf of Trump. I think he's if you wanna talk briefly about the debate, I think he could be walking into a trap here because she's going to do the Mike Pence, "I'm speaking, I'm
yes.
talking, Mr. Vice President," and she's just waiting and hoping. Here he is, this big bully, gonna bully this woman,
Yeah, I
and
mean, it's
it's
her only
it's a
move, and
setup.
I have to say, many other parts of her performance when she was running in 2019 for president were bad, but her highlights in the debates were
Mm,
not her worst moments. Now, you can argue that they were despicable because she was
yeah.
arguing that Joe Biden was a racist who she was later gonna join his ticket.
Yeah,
You can
I
argue
was that girl, right? Wasn't
yeah,
that the
you
whole
can
thing?
argue
Yeah.
that it was, like, emotional and manipulative and, like, not a nice thing to do, but they weren't the debate performances weren't the lowlights of that campaign, I don't think,
No.
right?
No, no, no.
So, there's some evidence that she's not horrendous at this, and she survived the one with Pence pretty fine. So, yes, I think you're right, like, if he leans into his tendency to be obnoxious, then he's in trouble, which is why his folks want the mics muted, which was the agreement
Yeah.
in the September 10th one that he agreed to with Biden. So this does tick me off because the way this is treated is as if so remember when the Harris campaign and the media was like, "Oh, this big coward doesn't want to do the
Right,
September 10th
right, he's scared.
debate that he agreed to it." It's like, well, he agreed to a debate with a different candidate.
Yeah,
So everything has to be discussed and agreed upon with
yeah,
the new campaign.
yeah, yeah,
Then they come to that agreement and he says, "Okay, September 10th, we'll do the thing."
yeah.
And then they are acting like the mics are negotiable at this point. Like if the thing was non-negotiable when there was a different candidate, I don't think the mics are negotiable now. Like
Yeah,
it's
no, and it's also a little rich coming from a candidate who has been dodging the press, is not certainly there's no way she's gonna do a press conference before election day where she's just gonna, field random questions live and
yeah.
have no idea what they're gonna ask. And as we know, even in the Biden administration, a lot of those questions were, ahead of time. They know who to call on and what the question is going to be. We've seen photos of the notes on that. I get it. I get it as a tactic, and I would probably do the same thing if my client was Kamala Harris, which is,
Right.
you know, I don't know what good comes out of talking versus not talking. And look, Donald Trump and JD Vance are on all the time.
Right.
And it only makes them, it puts them at risk of saying something
It does.
ridiculous
Yeah.
every time they open their mouth. So
Yeah.
don't open your mouth.
I mean, it's great
As
if you
long as the American
feel
people are
into it.
fine with it.
Again, the equivalent is like if I did only one interview in a month, but I only did it with you or Guy Benson, right? Like it's like my job right now requires taking more tough questions than
Yeah.
hers does, and
Yeah.
I just think that's not the correct
Right.
metric. She
Right.
should be she should be beating me
I
on
ho
this.
I hope they're good questions. I hope they're good questions.
Yeah, and I hope we see more of this. Maybe we will. I doubt it.
Okay.
We shall see. Can we talk about how the Washington Post decided that Doug Emhoff is a sex symbol?
Oh, sure.
This was an op-ed that came out. Catherine Rampel, who was
Yeah.
the woman who I appreciate writing the dunk on Kamala's economic policies, where she was like, if they say you're a communist, maybe don't do price controls.
Yeah.
So maybe this is her makeup call to the Harrises.
Uh-huh.
She's like,
Yeah, no.
Doug, you're super hot.
There's lots of
Um,
give and take going on.
so on Friday, Washington Post columnist published Doug Emhoff, Modern Day Sex Symbol, an opinion piece by columnist Catherine Rampel, in which she described the second gentleman as a hunk for being secure enough with his own masculinity to sometimes prioritize his wife's ambitions over his own. In her column, Rampel noted that Emhoff, formerly a corporate attorney at a prestigious firm, left his position ahead of Harris's inauguration as vice president in January 2021 to avoid any appearance of conflicts of interest. I love how she notes this, whatever his previous marital drama, to be sure,
To be sure. Yeah,
that
wow.
makes him the
Yeah.
working woman's ideal partner today. I don't know. I don't know if I want my husband to quit his job entirely and do soul
Yeah.
cycle classes all day.
Which is what he does. He works out a lot, I guess. He doesn't
Yes.
look like, but he does. He does.
So, two things.
Mhm.
I will not be gaslit about Doug Emhoff being a sex symbol.
Because they're doing this on purpose, aren't they, Mary Catherine? Are they doing that? They're doing this just to see our heads explode, right? This is why they don't actually believe he's hot.
They do this.
Or
They
do they
do
believe he's hot?
once per administration. They do this kind of
Uh-huh.
nonsense. Do you remember Peter Orszag,
Yes,
head of,
ORSZ
head of OMB?
AG, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There was a brief period of time when he was talked about as a sex symbol,
Come on, man. That's just
right? And it's like,
yeah.
okay, guys, he is tall. I'll give him that. But it's like there's only one town in which someone can come up with the pitch. So there's this sexy new OMB director.
Right,
Like,
right.
no,
I mean, I
you're-
guess if you compare it to previous OMB directors, maybe,
maybe.
or as the certain type, as I have been told on Capitol Hill, which is hill butt, is the term that's used for like guys who just they all start to have form. They turn into this form because you
Yeah,
spend all
there's
day in
sort
the
of a
office, and
matching.
it's sort of a dimensions are well. I'm not going to say who told me that. She told me
Mhm.
that at home, but
Okay.
but that's the way she would describe it.
Understood.
There's a certain type. Yes.
Yeah, there's
So
not.
yeah, compared to that, oh my gosh, you got an Adonis. So
But like it's
yeah.
all again, I resent it because it's all so obviously ideological,
Mhm.
right? This
Yes.
isn't about whether someone's actually sexy. It's like, oh no. I've decided that this person who, by the way, in Imhoff's case, left his last marriage after stupping the nanny.
I was going to say, who does think
But
he's hot is the old
feminist.
nanny. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The feminist. Sorry.
Feminist dude. If that's a feminist dude, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass on that. I believe Orsag had some bad behavior as well that came to light.
Could you imagine if that was Trump, or JD Vance, and that they had a previous, relationship where that happened? Because of course we know all about with Trump, he's famous for
Yeah.
this and becomes a thing. But if it were like, if the shoe were on the other foot, much like it is with any of these other women involved in these stories, the nanny would be a celebrity right now.
Oh, household name.
Oh yeah,
Household name.
yeah,
It's just different rules because he's a kind
yeah. Yeah,
feminist
yeah,
husband,
the late night jokes would be endless. Yeah.
kind feminist husband.
Do you think
I
it
retired.
works though on, like, the average voter when they see this?
No,
Okay.
this is entirely a Washington thing, I think.
Mm.
I guess they're trying to make something of it in the TikToks. And young Doug has a look about him.
Mhm. Okay.
Uh, but look, I just think it's trying too hard. We're trying too hard, guys.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't buy it. No shade, no body shaming, no nothing from me. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that this is real. And I don't think he should get credit for being a nice feminist guy when he has behavior that shows that he's not.
No, again, it's like the Democratic convention where they go after, Trump for being this sexual predator, and now please welcome President
Bill
Bill Clinton, and
Clinton.
everyone gives him a standing ovation because he's so great, you know?
You know? Again, like I said with the Kennedys,
You
it is an encapsulation of modern liberalism that like everything is fine as long as you
Yeah,
are a good
that's
liberal
right.
Democrat,
That's right.
right? And
Yeah.
the definition of good liberal Democrat changes like every 3 weeks because you gotta get the update on the new language and stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Did
What
you wanna talk
else?
about polls? I would
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
now, so on the in a previous episode, we talked about our prediction for polls, and I think you said, I don't know, 2 or 3, and I
I said
said
lower than you did.
lower. Yeah, I said 5 points.
Yeah.
So Reuters Ipsos has her at 4,
Uh-huh.
and Fox News, even liberals, I think, know that it's a weirdly left-leaning poll, the Fox
Mhm.
News poll, but in that poll, post-convention, they have her obviously within the margin of error, but leading basically every battleground except North Carolina, and there's a new Hill Emerson poll out that has her she's leading again within the margin of error, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, tied in Pennsylvania, and the real clear politics average is like 1.7 or 2. Do you think that's so people are excited in some sense for her? On the other hand, post convention, do you think that she should have gotten a better bounce out of this?
I think look, it's hard to say. Obviously, they'd prefer a larger bounce, but I think a lot of her bounce was in knocking off Biden and taking this role to begin with,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that was the bounce.
Yeah.
And convention bounces can be quite ephemeral, right? Like people get a
Yeah.
good feeling about you for a couple days and then it sort of settles out again into the real nitty-gritty of election season in the next couple months. I don't know how you get a better month of press than this person has gotten,
Yeah.
right? So this is ideal. This is her at ideal conditions.
This moment, this window right here. Yeah.
Yes. Ideal conditions. Now, ideal conditions might be enough to catapult her to where she needs to be.
Right.
I mean, early voting starts very soon.
Yeah.
Um,
It does. I think in Pennsylvania. I think
but
actually Pennsylvania's already been decided. I don't know if you know that. It's done.
they're done.
The
They
polls are
finished.
closed now. Yeah.
Actually, the election's over.
The
Thank
election's
you.
over.
Thank you
It's
for
over.
playing,
Stay
everyone.
home.
No, so I think obviously they'd like a slightly bigger bounce, but
Right.
you know what was weird to me? I didn't realize this until I looked it up later. They
Mhm.
took a break after the convention. They were not barnstorming around the country.
No, no, they were not campaigning. That is correct.
That's
Uh,
weird.
it is maybe because they have to get their house in order, maybe because, as I think Axios has been reporting and elsewhere, the campaign, first of all, there are leaks happening now out of this campaign,
Right.
which is useful for the media if they decide to run with it. But certainly it's not as tightly locked as the Biden campaign was until the very end, obviously, when
Right.
things were a complete disaster. But you have this weird mix now because Kamala is, she's going to inherit some people, obviously, from the current administration, but really her go-to is the Obama people. And the Obama people and the Biden people, they do not mix.
No.
So, I mean, the question about who is in charge is really, it's awkward. There's nobody in the White House right now because Joe Biden, he's in Rehoboth and he's traveling around going to a couple other places. The president is not here and
Well,
the staff is just, it's somebody I think that was described on Fox as they were saying it's like senioritis.
yeah, no. So
They're
so
checked out.
Biden took a vacation
Yeah.
after he did the speech at the convention.
Mhm.
He goes to the West Coast. Then he comes back here for another vacation.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his vice president, who it's clear to me, like probably should be the president.
Yeah.
Look, I'm arguing against interest because that
Yeah.
would
No, no, you're
probably
being honest.
serve her electorally. But I think the constitutional remedy for the president not being able to do the job is that you give it to the vice president.
Right.
He's not doing the job. She's not doing the job because she's also taking a break during this time.
Yeah.
And she's not even doing the job of running for president. Now, lest I be accused of untoward bias,
Mhm.
Trump has been accused during this summer of not doing enough rallies,
Yeah.
not being on the
People
trail.
talk about that low
Cer-
energy.
Certainly not at the same level that he did in 2016.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about 2020 what his
It's a
rate
weird
was,
time. Yeah.
but not being out there enough. But again, it's like the standards are just completely different.
Right.
When Trump's not on the trail, it's like, well, sure, he answers a couple questions every now and then, but he doesn't have what it takes. He's not doing this barnstorming that Harris is doing. Look at her; she's all over the country. She's talking
Yeah.
directly to voters. She doesn't need to talk to media.
No, no, no. She's
Well,
meeting with the American people.
and then she took a break and wasn't meeting with the American people or the press. And
Yeah.
and I just don't understand why not, if you want a convention bounce, you go continue that
Yeah.
coverage.
Yeah. You lean
You
into
know
that.
no reporter's gonna ask you anything other than how you're
Right.
feeling.
So
So just go out there and do it.
there have been bigger, obviously, convention bounces, and I mean, polling was different at the time. It's after 1988, Dukakis had a very sizable lead over George H.W. Bush, and obviously that changed as we got into the fall after Labor Day. Labor Day is now upon us. The other thing, if you wanted to argue in Trump's favor, is that assuming polls have not significantly improved from 2020, in 2020 they had Biden leading Trump in a lot of the battleground states by, I don't know, 6, 7 points. And in reality, Trump was down by 1 or 2.
Right.
So if Trump is now currently down or tied with Harris, like 1 or 2 points in the battleground states, that might mean, come election day, that puts him up actually 2, 3, maybe even 4 points.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that's the question is
yeah,
like, do you unskew the polls, right?
right,
Which is a
right,
dangerous
right.
endeavor. But it's also it can be problematic to assume they're gauging Trump support correctly because they have frequently
Right. Are they
understated Trump's support.
overcompensating the way we all anticipated a red wave, for example? And that
Right.
was disastrous for Republicans. And then the other thing is I think we're still sort of trying to wait out this, figure out, I don't know, I am at least the RFK,
Yeah.
post, the shakeout. I think that's hard to gauge because a lot of his supporters, it's what I call the silent minority, where, I don't know how they feel about it. I do know it's funny. I understand that Democrats were trying to keep him on the ballot now in
Right.
some states.
Right.
Bec- first they wanted him out, now they want him in. But
Yeah,
yay
just depends on
democracy.
the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah.
Just depends on the day. Yeah, we shall
We'll
see
see
what
that.
else shakes out. But I think this is just going to be a slog until election day. If she, I guess there's an argument that momentum could continue for her, which is why
Yeah,
I wonder why she didn't just go out on the trail.
right.
Momentum could continue for her and continue to build, but I'm not sure upon what. Right?
Whereas Trump has reached his limit, like he can't get any
Oh,
more.
yeah.
That
I
this
think,
is it.
and
Yeah.
he hasn't formed momentum. He
Mhm.
is not creating momentum. I think the
Right.
events of the day and the economy will dictate whether people turn toward him. If the reality on the ground just doesn't match what she's telling people it is, and if they don't buy that she's this turn of the page since she's literally in the White House.
Yeah, I mean, she's in the White House now, and if that's what they want people to sort of weirdly forget how terrible things are when Trump hasn't been in office for, I don't know, 4 years or whatever. So we'll see.
Well, I wanna note because we keep saying we're gonna talk about
Oh,
the astronauts.
we're gonna do it.
2 months we've been saying we're gonna talk
Yes.
about the astronauts. The good news is for us, for our purposes, which is most important, they're gonna be up there for a while, so we got a long time to talk about them.
Yeah, so
We could have missed the story, but nope, they're not back yet.
they went up, right? They went up on a Boeing Starliner, and then
Yeah, it
they
was supposed to be an 8-day trip, but it
oh, is that your Gilligan Island reference? Very
yes.
good. And to the International Space Station, right?
Yeah. It's supposed to be an 8-day trip to space, this is Fox News reporting, has turned into a month-long one. NASA officials announced over the weekend that the troubled spacecraft would return to Earth without them. Yeah, so they went in the Starliner. Their names are Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. They've been on the International Space Station since engineers discovered helium leaks and issues involving thrusters shortly after Boeing's CST-100 Starliner docked, which prompted NASA and Boeing to investigate. Word in the space street now is that it'll be February before they're back home. Bless them.
They'll
That
come
is
when they come back to Earth, there will be a different president.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. I mean, I'm glad they're experienced. It's Wilmer's third mission on the International Space Station.
Okay.
He has 178 days in space, and she has also been there several times. I this
Okay.
this just seems scary to
I
me. I'm disturbed.
Do you know who the chairwoman, I'm giving this away by saying chairwoman,
Mhm.
of the National Space Council is?
You know, I have heard
Yeah.
that it's Vice President Kamala Harris.
It is in her portfolio. I
Well, as we
wonder
know, it
yeah.
doesn't matter what's in her portfolio.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's not really, it's these are just, they're options for her to look at, things to look
Right.
at. But really, I wish she could say something or do something that would really boost her numbers if she could say we're going to get her back like, Apollo 13,
Yes.
but it's
Well, they had some creative fix that they were gonna try and ditched it at some point. Which again, this is all making me very nervous even to
Yeah.
talk about it. There's something about it that just
Oh,
makes me
sure. Yeah, and it's a
unsettled.
pure oxygen environment, I mean, it's, also okay, I do have questions. Number 1, aren't there always some, like, Russian there at the International Space Station? Isn't there? Oh, you're telling me there's nobody else?
They're like, "Oh, it's Yuri again."
Yeah, no, just hanging out there? No, it's just the 2 of them? Okay, that's the first question.
Okay.
Okay. The second thing is I find it rather humorous that NASA and I guess Bill Nelson, who is the former senator who's over there, had to turn to their arch nemesis, Elon Musk,
Yeah.
because it's a Dreamliner that got him up there. Rather the Starliner, rather. The Dreamliner is the other Boeing, the plane that is also problematic. So Boeing is going through a really bad streak right now, but now they need SpaceX to get them back.
Yeah, so they're explain this to me. They're going to join a SpaceX crew
Yes.
somehow? That it is funny that Elon has has
Of
to
course
bail
he
them
will.
out.
Even though they're trying to investigate him or do this to him or that to him or,
Ugh.
and prevent him from, you name it. It's then they have to turn him because they need
Yeah,
him here.
so SpaceX does a 6-month rotation
Mhm.
mission, and they will pick them up,
Yeah.
and they're gonna hitch a ride back in late February with the Elon Musk SpaceX crew.
Right. How would you how do you how do you how do you think you would handle the claustrophobia? Because they do tests like this to see how you can handle space environment and things of like that.
I think look, if you're stuck up there for a long period of
Mhm.
time, you're gonna have to cognitive behavior therapy yourself into
Yeah.
not flipping out.
Yeah.
Because I would if you think too hard about it, you're gonna flip out up there,
Yeah.
and I think I would just focus on the small things.
I
Day to
w
day, eat my next
I have
meal.
the books, they have online, they have crosswords. I would not wanna be in that situation unless the other astronaut was like Emma Watson.
Oh my god.
And let me tell you something, Mary Catherine, I give this much thought. I think that it might take,
'Cause she went to Brown and she's so smart.
yes, and it would weeks. Yes, that's why I would like it for intellectual stimulation
Mhm.
and, weeks, perhaps months, but I think finally I would be able to wear her down, and by the end, she would finally say, "Hi, who are you?" Is what she'll do. She'll finally talk to me. That's what I think, but it'll take me
Wear
months
her down.
for her to finally wear her down, and she'll finally acknowledge my existence. Yes.
They have plenty of food.
They
The
do.
space station is equipped with all of that. They do say there's a constant to-do list for them. USA Today reporting has spoken to them that, they gotta fix the toilet, they gotta change out fan engines, they
Oh,
gotta
man. Well,
it's
it's like a
like,
maintenance crew.
"Oh, yeah." I mean, they're just
Okay.
hanging out up there,
Yeah.
fixing things, wrenching, doing around the house tasks in their tiny
No,
little
you'd be
pod.
great up there. You'd find things to do. You'd be great up there.
I mean, look, I think I would be removed from the news cycle for a bit, probably be pretty zen up there, watch
Right.
the earth go by.
Right. I mean, look, it's like, it's Interstellar. If you remember the guy where he waits in space, it seemed like 30 minutes for them on the ground is probably
Yeah.
the Interstellar nerds will correct me on this, but it was like 30 minutes on the ground and 30 years in space or some insane number like that.
Oh, I would that's a secret fear of mine 'cause it happens in so much science fiction that, like, I'd come back down and, like, all my children would be 43
Right,
years
they're
old.
grown up. Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
"Missed
Yeah.
it all."
Yeah. Yeah.
That would make me sad. I also this is a specific fear for me, like, the
Okay.
vastness of space I find
Huh.
sort of
Sure. Yeah.
just unsettling. I've
Yeah.
I've never been a big space person probably for that reason, because if I think too hard about it, it doesn't make me
You know what
happy.
movie you should see that'll make you
Is
feel better? You should see Alien, the first one, Ridley Scott's Alien.
I actually that's a great movie.
It is an
You know
amazing
what
movie.
movie you know what I'm gonna do an impression of me watching Gravity.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
Are
sure.
you ready?
Uh-huh, yeah.
I was on a plane and I watched it for a few
Oh.
minutes, and this is me. Nope. Nope, 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 turn it off, and then I, like, would unpause it. Nope,
Wow.
nope, 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 nope,
Wow.
can't do it,
You had to
can't
pause. You needed breaks for
I
this.
didn't even watch it, I
Oh
bailed out
my
after, like,
gosh.
7 minutes.
You know, it's funny because she ends up having to go to a Chinese space station, and it's like it looks accurate. Not that the Chinese have their own space station per se, but it looked accurately like what you would imagine a
Yeah.
Chinese space station would look like. Anyway, just leave it at that. I'm just
Hey,
leaving it at that.
whatever joke
Okay.
you make, you're allowed
Yeah.
to make,
Yeah, I can make it
okay?
half the time, a quarter of the time. Okay. Okay. Did you want to talk about the DC food scene
I do,
story?
tell me
Okay.
about this
All
guy.
right. So this was reported in the Washington Post.
I
A TikTok food influencer who has like millions of followers. His name is Keith Lee. He went to our nation's capital to do a food trip and see, check out the food scene. And usually he'll recommend places to go, and then everybody's going to go there. He did not have much to recommend, and he did something that like our mothers would say, which is, if you've got nothing nice to say,
Mhm.
don't say anything at all. And he was very mindful that, he didn't want to give away specifics of places that he thought were terrible
Right.
because that people work there. It is, and he understands that. And it is the opposite of Ruth Reichel, the longtime New York Times food critic, who, people would go after her and say that, your reviews have led to restaurant closures and people out of jobs. And she
Ooh,
says, in her defense, my responsibility is to the reader to tell them don't go here because the place is bad. If it's
yeah, I mean,
bad.
you gotta be honest.
So what Keith Lee says in a
You
lot of
ain't
these.
saving democracy here, you're
No,
talking
no,
about
no, no,
speed.
that's not right. Exactly. And what Keith Lee will say, the way he describes it is he'll say, well, I'm not their target audience, is what he says.
Mhm, okay.
But the places that he recommended are places that, and I've lived here, but now I'm old, so I don't go in, for much. But places that I've never heard of in the city, like Okonomi Asian Grill, the Flavor High Food Truck in Alexandria, Smize and Dream Ice Cream, Hong Kong Delight for the Mumbo Sauce. I don't know these places.
I know.
I
Are
go
we
to 4 I go to 3 places. I go to 3 places. I go to the Palm, the Bombay Club, or Joe's, and I just go in a rotation. Not
Yeah,
every day, mind you. It's
we're
like,
out of the scene,
yeah,
we're out of the
I'm out of
scene.
the scene. I become a creature of habit, and that's all. I don't go to any of these other places. So, but I think but Washington has always had this chip on its shoulder in terms of the restaurant scene, though. I don't know. Do you think it's fair? You would say they're great places to eat
I
here.
think there are look, I'm not a huge food snob, I
Mhm.
enjoy a nice meal, but I think both of us can go high or low,
Yeah,
right? And
of course.
I can find things to make me happy in many spots, but I think we have places with ambiance and good food, and
Mhm.
certainly if I go to New Orleans, I'm
Oh,
enjoying myself more than I am eating on the DC scene,
sure.
but I don't think we're without treats, uh,
No. Great
and
places.
but I think first of all, Eater reports that even though he didn't give rave reviews, the places he's mentioned are still selling out,
Oh, okay. People
and
are sort of curious. Yeah.
he also says in a video that he dropped this week that he's only doing 6 of the 12 DC restaurant reviews he went to, which
Aha.
doesn't
No.
signal great
No,
things
it does
about his
not. It does
experiences.
not.
But yeah, I it's so classic DC to be very
You
both
know.
very snobby and insecure
Right,
about
totally, it's both, and that's basically the persona of the city and the
Yep.
politicians here and everybody who works here is this it's both parts, it's both
This is why I
parts.
prefer being right of center because it's just like, "Yeah, we're lame." That's right.
I'm going to Martin's Tavern, I don't care,
I don't
whatever.
look, we
Yeah,
I know you're not gonna think I'm cool.
I have
We
to yeah.
I understand that. That's part of the deal.
No, when I tell you when I went up to New York and I got teased for wearing khakis and dress shoes because nobody does that anymore, designer sneakers or whatever they do up there in the big city. I have to tell you briefly a funny story when I was reading about this food scene story. I did a conference call once with, and I used to do, I used to cover Top Chef and talk to the losing chefs every week. It was a lot of fun. I did that when I was at the Standard. I
Yeah.
also did one, and I never wrote about it because it was weird, and now I probably would have. I did a conference call with Adam Richman. Do you remember him? He was the host of a show called Man versus Food.
Yes, I
And
do
it was
remember.
always about
It.
how on earth is he eating the most insane things. And in fact, it took a toll on his health, and he had to constantly get health checkups and try to be healthy throughout. But you're eating, stuff that we were watching it, and you watch it in a series, and it's just staggering. Anyway, he came to the DC area, and he was going to do a thing on favorite sandwiches. He was doing sandwiches across America, right? The best sandwiches.
Right.
And so he was going to do one for the best sandwich in DC. So he
Okay.
does a conference call, and we all get on this call, and he's calling us from his hotel room, right? He's staying at the W. And he said, honestly, the best sandwich I've had in DC was the club sandwich I got at room service at the W
Oh my
Hotel.
gosh.
And all I could think of is, did you not actually leave your hotel? Well, I didn't, I mean, that's like, did you? And he's, oh no, I went around, but I remain unconvinced that that is and he goes, "Oh," so we're like, "Oh, you mean so the restaurant downstairs?" No, 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 the room
No, just the one
service
sent up.
totally,
Come on.
as the kids would say, totally sus.
So
Totally sus.
it is sus. So have I ever told you about how I may or may not have moved to this city for a sandwich?
What?
So when I came to interview in DC for my first job,
Yes,
I interviewed 2 places. I interviewed at the Heritage Foundation
of
and I
course.
interviewed at the Washington Times. I didn't, as a lowly employee at the daily newspaper I worked at, I didn't have vacation days, so I had just took an unpaid day. And if I remember correctly, basically had to drive up, do the interviews, and drive back to North Carolina within the day
Yeah, yeah,
to
that's what
be
you
back
did,
to
right?
work.
Of course.
So I did that, and I scheduled my interviews at like noon and 3 p.m. The Washington Times, by the way, kind of screwed me over by sending me on a test story
Oh,
at the
right.
Supreme
Yeah,
Court
yeah.
where I attempted to get a quote from Breyer and
Justice Breyer.
was removed from an elevator by
Yes,
his security.
intrepid reporter that you are.
Let me just say that I think I should have gotten that job just for talking myself into the Supreme Court without credentials, which is a
Yeah.
thing that I did. They didn't hire me. The Heritage Foundation did hire me. So, at any rate, I was up here for that. And a friend of mine lives in Georgetown by the jetties.
Oh,
Okay. She went to school at Georgetown and
there's a
she had a
couple
place over there.
locations. Yes, that's
So
on the
I'm
west. That's like in Foxhall neighborhood.
Yeah, so I met up with her at Jetties in
Uh-huh.
Georgetown
Oh
and I
yeah.
ordered the Surfside sandwich.
What's in the
The
Surfside?
Surfside sandwich, I'm so glad you asked, Vic, is on sourdough. It
Okay.
is roasted turkey,
Oh,
crispy bacon, whole grain mustard, avocado,
that
and
sounds
Havarti.
okay. Wow.
And it is so fantastic. And I splurged on this sandwich at the time. I'm sure it was like $9 or something, right? But for me, that was a
Oh, no,
huge
and it was a lot back then. That I remember
lot of
that.
money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a deluxe sandwich.
Yeah.
I splurged on this sandwich. I ate that sandwich and was like, I might have to move here to keep eating this sandwich.
Just because it's so good. Now, when's the last time you had the Surfside sandwich at Jetties? That's what I wanna know.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Vic.
Oh,
Because of where we tape Getting Hammered,
yes.
I can drive right across the bridge, DoorDash myself a Surfside, and get over there and pick it up and drive straight home,
Oh
eating my
my
Surfside in the car.
oh my goodness.
And I
I
do it on a regular basis. So I'd just like to tell Mr. Richmond that he missed out.
he missed that. He shoulda went to Jetties. I'm surprised Surfside wasn't some sort of a seafood theme.
No, that is odd. Why is it
It
called
is,
that? I don't
like,
know.
have you gone to Buoy Mongers? Remember Buoy Mongers?
Yes.
They had a wonderful tuna sandwich. You know what it was called? The Tuna Turner. All right.
So dumb. The whole that the Jetties is like northeastern shore themed. Like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
some
yeah.
guys from Nantucket who
Yeah.
started it or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Good to
that's
know.
the sandwich that is the reason I've spent 20 years of my life in this town.
Yeah, it's kept you here. Thank goodness for Jetties, and there's, like, a couple locations. Now I'm starving, I gotta go.
Okay, so I will
'Cause
say
yes.
this guy has brought to my attention several restaurants, and one of which I've been to before, I believe, which is Dukem Ethiopian restaurant, which I think is
Oh, yeah, that
out
would
of
made the news
Jordan.
recently.
The short ribs got a 9 of 10, so maybe I'll go back and try those. I have been there before, and there's a place called Kane on 8th Street that I
Okay.
didn't know about. Maybe
Uh-huh.
I'll try that one, even though he wasn't that impressed.
I love Ethiopian food. I
Wow.
went to one called Etete in Shaw. Great flavor. Great
Yeah.
flavor. Okay.
And the bread too, that spongy what's
The spongy yeah, the injera, I think it is. Man. Well,
okay.
actually, I gotta go to the Palm. So, that wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube or Instagram. Maybe Vic and I will go get an Ethiopian martini one of these days. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.